Hi, and welcome to another video by Get It Done Home Repairs. Today we're going to talk about how to measure a broken spring for a garage door. Now these are the tension type springs, so there's three very important things that you need to know. One is you need to know the overall length of the spring itself. The next thing you need to know is you need to know the inside diameter in here, between this point and this point. We need to know the inside diameter. And the last thing we need to know is the thickness of the wire that makes up the spring itself. Now, obviously, if you have the spring off of the garage door, you can measure the length of it from here to here to be able to tell what spring you need. But if the spring is still on the door and it's broken, how do you determine what size spring you need to order? So we're going to talk about that. Now you can see here the spring is broken, obviously, and the reason we don't want to measure it on the door itself with the spring still on the non-broken spring, we don't want to measure the spring that's not broken, because when you measure the spring that's not broken, you're not going to get an accurate measurement, because as the spring is wound, it'll actually grow in length. So you may measure the spring while it's still on the garage door and the tension is still on it, and it may read 31, 32, whatever inches. So you can't measure the spring while it's on the door and get an accurate measurement. What you can do when the spring is broken on the door is you can get an accurate measurement of the spring that's broken. Now when the spring is on the door and it's broken, you're going to notice the spring has got a gap in between like this. And that's because when the spring is wound, it does grow that much longer as it's wound up on the door. As you can see, the distance between the two broken sections of spring, that's why it's important to measure each piece individually so you get the overall length is correct. Otherwise, you'll have it 2 or 3 inches too long. So what we need to do is to calculate what the size of the spring is when it's in the unwound position. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. One, you could take the spring off the door itself and measure the spring itself. The next way is you would just measure the 2 broken portions and calculate the size from that. And the way you would do that is you just take your measuring device, your ruler, you put it on the spring itself, and you're measuring just from the end of the spring right here to the end of the spring right here. You're not measuring the aluminum portion of it that's over here, and you're not measuring the other portion which is over here. You're just measuring the coils of the spring. So what we're going to do now is we're going to measure the coils of the spring. We'll get our measurement. And here we have it's 21 3/4 inches. So we're going to write down that 21 3/4 inches. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that broken section of spring, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to measure the broken section of spring itself to get a size there as well. And as you can see here, it's 6 1/4 inches. So we're going to put down 6 1/4. We'll add the 2 of them together, and it comes up 28 inches. The length of the spring is 28 inches. Now this one you can see is off of the garage door itself. And just to confirm that we are correct, as you can see, it's about 28 1/4. So in this case, we're going to wind up rounding it down. Okay, so it's 28 1/4. If it was 28 1/2, we would round it up. But in this case, we're going to round it down. We know the spring is 28 inches long. The next thing we need to do is we need to calculate how thick or how big the diameter is inside this spring right here. And the way you would do that is you take your measuring tape like this. Let's bring you in a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So what we now have is we have the spring that's broken right here, and we need to determine the size right through here. Now the way you would do that, I'm going to switch this so you can watch what I'm doing here. You cannot put it like this, because as you can see, this piece right here is hitting up against the spring and is not getting the true measurement inside of it. What you want to do is you want to turn your measuring tape like this, put it in here like that, and then you would measure the inside like this. And as you can see, it's 2 inches on the inside. All right, so we know that now the inside diameter here is 2 inches. We're going to write that down so we have that. 2 inches. Okay, Next thing we need to know is we need to know the thickness of the wire, how thick this wire is right here. To determine the thickness of the wire, what we need to do is we need to calculate we're going to go back, we're going to count 20 coils on the spring back. We're going to go 20 coils back, and we're going to take a piece of paper, and we're going to stick a piece of paper in that 20th coil, and then we're going to measure the length of the coil, the spring itself from end to end on 20 coils. And then we're going to look at our formula, which I will put on the screen here, and we'll calculate the thickness of the wire. All right, so now what we're going to do, let's take our spring, and we're going to count back 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is our 20th coil right here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of paper and stick our piece of paper in that 20th coil, just like that. Okay. Let's move that so you can see. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come in here with our measuring tape here. We're going to put it up against our 20th piece of spring, or in this case the piece of paper. We're going to measure from the 20th coil back to the first coil, and as you can see, it's 4 1/2 inches. So we know that the spring, the 20 coils of spring is 4 1/2. So we're going to write that down, 4 1/2. And now I'm going to put a chart on here. You can take a look at the chart, but if you look at the chart, it's going to say 20 coils of the spring at 4 1/2 inches in length is going to give me a size of 0.225 for the thickness of this spring right here. That tells you the thickness of the wire itself. So with those 3 measurements now, you should be able to go online and place the order for the new spring. Okay, so with the measurements that we have now, we know that the spring that we're going to be looking for, it's going to be 28 inches in length. It's going to be a 2-inch diameter inside, and we also know that the size of the wire is 0.225. And now when I took this other spring down off the garage, it tells you right here, 225. I can't read the rest of it. It looks like 28, 225 by 28. So we know that the spring is the correct spring. So now we're going to go online. We're going to place the order for it. Once the spring comes in, then we're going to go back into the garage and we'll put it back together. All right, make sure that you get the correct pieces of winding tool that they make for it. It goes in here. Rebar is not good because it doesn't fit exactly right. Make sure you get the proper tool for it. You don't want to get hurt while doing the job. I will put a chart on here so you can take a look at the chart and you can find out what size wire you need. For each one of these. I will also put a chart on here so that you can calculate how many revolutions you need to wind up this spring so that you get the correct tension on the door. All right, but I will put a link in there so you can take a look at it and see what it is, or I will put it in the video at some point. All right, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.